Welcome to Green Hill, Shadow, Chapter 7. We're here for you. Shadow had managed to curl onto his side in his sleep, and the scent of lavender still lingered on his pillows. He hadn't felt this comfortable in years. The dark gray furry blanket felt wonderful. He could hear some snoring come from the sleeping members of the household. Knuckles had gotten up earlier than everyone else in the house and went to refresh the plastic tumbler Shadow was given for water while getting his own, being mindful of everyone still asleep. Shadow heard him shake the dog Ozzy awake gently and take him outside to go about his business. Shadow, though, had no effort to try and move, his body loving the comfortableness that it hadn't gotten in years. His mind may be waking up, but his body was not, an impasse with mind and body. Of course, he couldn't bring himself to care. He actually felt he could drift off again and maybe have another dreamless sleep. But his body suddenly tensed up, preparing itself for something. Surely he was just working himself. He felt someone breathing above him. Alert now, eyes shot open, no hesitation. His fist shot upward, hitting the assailant on the chin and sending them flying onto the ceiling and creating a loud sound. His own eyes were pinpricks, and he sat up quickly, ignoring the slight sting in his abdomen. When his eyes finally focused on who it was, he saw the color blue on the ceiling, and he blinked. Oh, it was Sonic. In hindsight, that wasn't the blue hedgehog's smartest play. Sonic awoke after hearing Knuckles take Ozzy outside, and he let out a yawn. He uncurled himself from Tails, who decided to sleep with his big brother on his mattress underneath Shadow. Tails and his parents were still asleep, as was the black hedgehog, who actually had a peaceful expression on his dozing face. So, Sonic had an idea. He got himself up quietly and went to the armrest at Shadow's head and leaned over the unsuspecting hedgehog. Sonic grinned, wanting to start Shadow's morning with a hearty hello. He could see Knuckles make his way back and gave the hedgehog an expression that looked between "what are you doing?" to a "this is a horrible idea" one. As Knuckles was about to open his mouth to advise against it, Shadow beat him to it and hooked Sonic right on his chin with so much force that he was set outward in a straight line, and Sonic let out an undignified scream as he shot up quickly and his quills edged into the ceiling, leaving him stuck up there. Sonic was dazed, blinking and wondering how the heck did Shadow manage not to only make him fly in a straight line, but also make him stuck on the ceiling. He felt like he was one of those slapstick moments, like the Looney Tunes or Tom and Jerry. That felt like Knuckles hitting him. Ouch. The scream and bang awoke the rest of the sleeping members. Tom was half on the coffee table and half on his mattress, pajamas galore, wondering what the heck happened to himself and solely wishing he had kept his gun near. Tails shot up with a wild and sleepy look on his expression, and Maddie? She looked ready to rustle the would-be burglar who might have tried to get into the house. Knuckles stared up at his brother, very impressed by Shadow's punch, but did not hide the amusement on his face.
What the heck?
Tom muttered out, looking about for the sound that woke everyone up.
What happened?
None of them, apart from the black hedgehog and red echidna, knew about Sonic being stuck in the ceiling. Shadow, though, his expression was between sheer annoyance and bewilderment as he stared up at the blue hedgehog, trying to process what he did no doubt.
Shh, that'll bruise.
Sonic winced out, hand hitting the ceiling trying to pull himself out of it. And with that, all three looked up, spotting that he was stuck on the ceiling, and their faces were comical. Well, comical for the people on the ground, aka Knuckles. And he did not intend to hide it, and laughed at his blue brother's predicament.
Shut it, Knuckles, it's not that funny.
Sonic called out, still trying to get himself out of the ceiling.
Pretty much is. You have no one to blame but yourself.
Tom was flabbergasted.
Sonic, how did you get up there?
Sonic groaned. Yeah, his body was stuck because of his quills. He was like a pincushion, but on the ceiling.
Oh, just trying my own version of Spider-Man, Spider-Hog.
Knuckles kept laughing to the hedgehog's suffering, and Shadow just flopped on his face onto the pillow.
Did you spin dash?
Maddie asked him what's between wanting to giggle and being used.
Sonic, we talked about that.
No, I had nothing to do with it this time.
Tails though looked at Sonic, then Shadow, then Sonic again, and let off an evil-like cackle, connecting the dots. Sonic let out an exasperated sound and pulled still. No luck. Trying to prevent himself dangling, he pressed his feet against the ceiling. He certainly looked like a Spider-Man.
Yeah, thanks, Tails. Feeling the sympathy. Really feeling it.
He grumbled out. Don't get him wrong, he was impressed by the way Shadow done it. He just didn't enjoy the pain, or being stuck.
Our dearest brother decided to awaken the black hedgehog and was met with disaster. Though I suppose if I was met with that face as I awoken, I'd have done the same thing.
You suck, Knuckles.
Tom blinked several times.
Shadow did that?
He muttered, flicking between Shadow then up at Sonic. He could see the cracks in his ceiling. Shadow kept his face against the pillow and groaned to himself. It did look unintentional at the very least. Had he done it on purpose, Tom and Manny might have had to have a long conversation with him and Sonic. If it had been a fight, but clearly it wasn't. Just Sonic struggling Shadow with his antics. Question is, how were they gonna get Sonic down?
I might need to get a ladder. How deep in is your quills?
So Sonic pulled again, and a crack could be heard from the ceiling, joining several others.
Extremely.
What is it with our house getting destroyed in some way?
It is father's curse.
Knuckles added, making Tom groan. Shadow's ears twitched, turning his head to give Tom attention, wondering what Knuckles meant.
Law of the universe, Shadow. If something happens, it's mostly because it hates you.
Tom said, still keeping his eye on the blue hedgehog stuck on the ceiling.
Like it does with our father.
Knuckles pointed out, who was also still watching his blue brother free out on the ceiling. Tails finally stopped cackling and wiped his eyes in an effort to calm down.
Gosh, it's too early for this. Thank you, Sonic.
Welcome, bro.
He said as he crossed his arms in a huff. Maddie took a picture for her keepsake, which earned a lot of protest from her blue boy. But she wasn't that sorry. He always found a way to get in trouble, even without meaning to, and it backfired. Still, it was a comical picture, a memory she'll look back on and smile despite the damage.
How am I gonna get him out?
Tom muttered to no one but himself, trying to figure out how to get him out without causing the ceiling to collapse. He went off to find his ladder. Knuckles kept his eye on the hedgehog.
I could jump and pull you.
Knuckles, you do that, and you're bringing the whole ceiling with me.
Knuckles struggled again, earning an enraged growl from the hedgehog.
Hedgehog, it's the consequences from your actions. You do not things through sometimes.
I wasn't expecting a hedgehog you to hit me.
A hedgehog me. We look nothing alike.
I mean his strength. Shadow, you want to make it up to me and send him into the ceiling too?
Sonic gestured to the black hedgehog. Knuckles took in what Sonic said with surprise, and so did Tails, both processing in different thoughts. Shadow just gave the blue hedgehog a deadpan stare, like that said, how about now, and flopped his head back into the pillow, ignoring him. Sonic let out an undignified gasp, like he couldn't believe the black hedgehog.
You lousy black hedgehog! Dishonor! When I get down there, you'll suffer my wrath.
And Shadow had the nerve to snort, glad his pillow blocked his face because he had a grin. Tom had managed to find a stepladder and sat it against the side table and climbed up to reach Sonic, who was promising to pay Shadow back tenfold when he least expected it. Maddie had gotten up at this point and watched both of them underneath in case she had to help catch the blue hedgehog. Tom pulled and Sonic pulled with him, trying to get him out of the ceiling, and he still did not budge. Tom grunted from the strain and wondered if they should try something to make him slippery on his quills. Then again, would it really work because how deep said quills were into their ceiling? He ended up asking Tails to go up the stairs to see if they poked through the carpet. The last resort would have Knuckles pull, but the risk of the ceiling going with the blue hedgehog was high with that echidna's strength. It took many pulls and tugs since they couldn't get any of the slippery stuff into the quills pierced in the ceiling, since it would go down and not where they needed it. Tom almost felt like sticking his feet on it and pull that way, but it would risk both of them falling. Shadow at this point was watching the blue hedgehog struggle, his own red eyes lit with amusement. Sonic glared at the unfazed hedgehog. If looks could kill, Shadow would have died on the spot. Knuckles went up the stairs at this point, just above the impact zone, and banged his fist on its side on the floor, which made some dust particles float down from the ceiling and made the blue hedgehog's green eyes widen in surprise.
Knux, no, don't do it that way.
Worry not, brother. I am just trying to make your quills loosen from this angle.
Both Tails and Shadow weren't that helpful, a grin here and there, and a snore from either of them. Shadow sipped on his cup of water, and Tails was sitting next to the black hedgehog, just watching things unfold as if they were watching television.
Knuckles, just come back down here and help me pull this way instead.
Maddie gave Sonic an assuring smile and kept her hands out and ready to catch him. Knuckles came back down at least. He looked to the hedgehog with intent and gestured Tom to go underneath with Maddie. He will do as gently as he can without too much risk. Not much of a choice. Tom went underneath and held his arms out too to catch his son. So Maddie took a step back in case things went haywire, and Tom didn't need his wife being bruised. Knuckles climbed onto the ladder and gave the ceiling and the hedgehog a once-over. He snuck his hand between the hedgehog's back and had a twinkle in his amethyst eyes. Sonic suddenly felt a twinge of worry.
Knuckles?
He started but couldn't finish his sentence. Knuckles did a mini slap of sorts on his back, and he plummeted into Tom, sending them both onto the floor. Luckily, the ceiling was still where it was, just with puncture marks from Sonic's quills and cracks that'll haunt the Wachowskis until it gets fixed. Both Tom and Sonic grunted, mixed with surprise and winded. Maddie rubbed her head. Too early for this. Tails and Shadow didn't seem to mind though. All they were missing was popcorn.
We shouldn't have started with that to begin with. Ugh, but let's never do that again.
Definitely not a morning anyone expected. Breakfast went by without a hitch at least, with small portions for the black hedgehog of course. Sonic kept promising vengeance would be his throughout the morning. If Shadow listened or believed him, he didn't let it show. Knuckles, though, kept telling his blue brother he'll forever keep this memory alive and pass the story down to many, such as Wade Whipple. Tails choked on his drink with a sudden declaration. That and Sonic's facial expression killed him. Tom put his hands together and shut his eyes, begging for the morning to pass by into a stable afternoon. But that wasn't going to happen because they planned to introduce Shadow to a bath or wash him down with cloths depending on the abdomen injury, and maybe get those mats fixed as well. That also implies Shadow would even let them. They don't want to make him uncomfortable, but they think it would be better for him in the long run. Tom and Maddie decided to work out on a plan, so they went up the stairs to decide the course of action. He was invested in a cartoon at the moment, something to have noise in the background while breakfast was on the trays. It was one that Sonic had suggested the other day, the Looney Tunes. It was odd seeing anthropomorphic animals, but somewhere it sparked a memory. Maria would talk about a cartoon show, and he may have seen a little part from it with the film projectors. She would talk about Daffy Duck and Bugs Bunny, which now he knows comes from this show. Though he honestly can't remember how many years it's been since.
So, Shadow, do you want more information on the televisions?
This early? Tails, come on. It's what, 11:30 now?
He definitely had a bruise forming under his chin, some of his muzzle sporting the color.
Hey, it's not my fault you spooked him and got stuck on the ceiling for a while.
I mean, who expects to get sucker punched like that?
Sonic gestured wildly. Shadow looked at the blue hedgehog with a still your fault look.
Don't give me that. I saw Kyrie do it to Sora and she didn't go flying off the screen. You know what? I'm gonna show you that scene when we have the time. like a normal response. Would it kill you?
He's lucky he didn't have his jaw broken. Knuckles sat beside Tails, munching on some nuts, and held out one for Shadow to try. Shadow reached over and took one, popping it in his mouth, pleasantly surprised by its flavor.
What is that?
The peanuts.
Knuckles hummed and gave Tails one, setting the packet on the coffee table.
I thought you had a quest of vengeance.
I do, but I'm not gonna deny Shadow the magical experiences of video games. I mean, Kingdom Hearts 1 is one of those first-time experiences you never get back.
Sonic had a nostalgic expression. It did gain Shadow's attention.
Kingdom Hearts?
Shadow leaned against the couch cushion.
Is there more than one of this video game? What's it about?
It's about a kid traveling to each of the Disney worlds and fighting against Heartless to keep the worlds into balance. Light versus Dark type deal. That's Kingdom Hearts 1. Now for the rest.
Shadow, for the sake of your sanity and mine, let's not open the franchise rabbit hole yet. Kingdom Hearts 1 by itself, yeah. But let Shadow see or play when he gets the chance and see how he connects Kingdom Hearts 2 afterward. Cause that's a whole you only do once you play the games.
So in short, my friend, Sonic gave you the watered-down version. The first is more simpler than the rest.
Knuckles said, munching on another nut. Shadow rubbed his chin, looking in thought. It's about light versus darkness. It sounded intriguing and something you'd find in a book. So this video game has philosophical themes such as light and dark, good and evil? Or is it treated as subjective, like enjoyment?
Well, after I do my chores, I'll show you the series. Do you think you can walk up to the attic though? Cause I'm being like you, bored in one spot.
He's more patient than you, Hedgehog. In fact, I think everyone is.
Sonic looked ready to attack Knuckles at this point, and Shadow had a small grin on his face with their antics.
I could try. My injury isn't as bad. It's been, several days? With the food I'm getting, it's giving me the energy I require to heal it. If anything, it just stings every now and again.
Tails looked at him in fascination, which made Shadow a little nervous, even if the fox meant no harm.
Would it be insensitive of me to ask about it? Your healing, I mean?
I would rather you didn't.
Tails thankfully didn't push it, but fascination still was in his light blue eyes. Shadow heard the humans come down the stairs before they opened the door to the living room.
Alright boys, go clean your room please. Shadow will be fine by himself till then.
Shadow had a feeling there's a reason he is sending them away, and he gave Knuckles a desperate stare at the back of his head, one that screamed, "Please stay." But the echidna did not turn his head to see it, or if he sensed it, he ignored him. All three got up without much complaint, but Knuckles patted the couch for the hedgehog, understanding his nervousness. But Maddie spoke up.
Shadow, I understand you're nervous, but would you prefer one of them to stay, like Knuckles? We just want to ask you stuff, baby, and we weren't sure if you wanted an audience.
And you don't really need to speak. Just nod or shake your head like before.
Tom piped up, hands on his hips, giving Sonic a look as he was about to protest about Knuckles not doing his part of the cleaning.
But if it makes you feel a lot better to have someone with you, then you can.
Shadow swallowed. So far the humans here had fed him, gave him things, and tried to make him comfortable. He knows Knuckles said they wouldn't harm him intentionally, but that can't override years of torment by humans in just a few days. He just wonders what they want to ask him while they did their cleaning. Knuckles looked in between, waiting to see what Shadow would want, for him to stay or be alright without him. Shadow took a deep breath and nodded for him to stay, and so Knuckles sat on the couch beside the black hedgehog. It was decided then, and it made Shadow feel relief that the echidna was understanding. So Tom sent Sonic and Tails up the stairs, who luckily didn't fight on it. He'll have a talk with them later so they understand why Knuckles stayed behind if they had any questions.
Alright. Shadow, could I see your injury on the abdomen? I won't touch it, baby. Just want to confirm how much it's improved.
Shadow looked at Knuckles, then back at her. She is a healer, and since Knuckles informed her about the healing, and she saw it herself, May as well get it over with and hopefully be left alone in the future, even if he dreaded it. He nodded and she brightened up when he did. He looked down and began to unwrap the bandage, and when he got to the end, some of the stitches had come out onto the bandage. Thanks to his healing abilities, his laceration was now just a scar that was dwindling in size. Her eyes were wide like saucers. She was closer than he expected, but he was brave enough to actually look at her. Even her mate looked surprised.
Incredible. That scar almost looks like it's a week old. And some of it looks like you've never even had an injury.
Knuckles looked to Shadow, who was beginning to look extremely worried, expecting her to want to do tests on him.
What are you saying, Mother? That this scar will not exist?
Shadow sighed and he nodded. Knuckles, whose eyes also went wide in surprise. The echidna suspected small cuts wouldn't leave scars. But the one on his abdomen? Despite the hedgehog's healing, it should still leave one because of its size. His healing was extraordinary, or rather, unordinary. Shadow had his ears pressed against his head, and Knuckles pursed his lips and tried to assure him, make it sound normal than it actually was.
You amaze me, Hedgehog. Just means no weakness for enemies to exploit during a battle.
Maddie gave her eldest a warm smile at him, trying to comfort this unusual development. What also surprised her was the stitches, the badly done job ones, but were they loose enough to come undone by his healing? More questions piled on her ever-growing list, and she tried to stomach the sickness that was rising because of the implications.
Well, you don't need the bandage anymore. So the other thing I want to ask is, do you know what a bath or shower is?
She stated, getting their attention. That confused Shadow. He expected more questions on his healing, tests, anything but moving on to the next, and it didn't make sense. Nothing in this Wachowski household made sense to the black symbiont. He knew what a bath was, though. It was cold, and there was a shower prototype on the Ark, but he never experienced it.
Nod for yes and shake for no.
Shadow chewed his lip on how to say yes for the bath but no for the shower. Maddie understood, though.
So bad?
He nodded.
A shower?
He shook his head. Wow, that went well. Both of them looked at each other.
So, how would you feel about a bath?
Tom suggested, earning a puzzled look from the black hedgehog.
Just to fully clean your stains and get that fur nice again. Wouldn't it feel better to be clean?
Shadow scorched up his nose. He was used to the cold baths back in the metal room. It didn't really clean him, to be exact, just left him shivering. But it would feel better to get rid of the old bloodied stains now that he had some control over his limbs. So he nodded, and both the humans had a sigh of relief.
Alright, let me run it. Natty, you get the supplies ready.
And with that, both of them headed upstairs. Run it. Shadow gave the echidna an even more confused look. Shadow stood up and his hind legs quivered somewhat, still not used to being able to walk, at least fully. He required Knuckles to help him up the stairs. First time he'd seen this part of the house. The hallway and the hallway stairs. Everything looked more colorful than what he was used to. It was interesting. He held onto the banister and an arm around Knuckles, who also held his side with intent. He still hated being touched, but he wanted this bath more, and was probably in a room where they could just toss the water without damaging their furniture, which was fine. It made sense now. They got to what he could assume was the bathroom and felt steam coming from it, and he blinked. Tom and Maddie were inside with all sorts of trinkets. Tom had a brown towel in his hand, while Maddie was putting bottles at the sides. He could see a large tub of water, and that's where the heat was coming from.
Okay, so we didn't make it overly hot. Just enough to be helpful towards your muscles and bones.
Maddie said and held up two bottles that Shadow didn't know what they were.
This is the shampoo and this one's the conditioner. Sonic uses it for his quill care, so it'll be good for your fur and, of course, quills.
We'll leave you to it, bud.
Tom stated putting a towel on the sink for him to use. Shadow didn't know how to have that water thrown over him, though. The tub was too big for such a thing. He gave Knuckles a puzzled look, who also gave him one back.
You just step into it, my friend.
He stated, and Shadow could feel himself turn red from embarrassment. Of course that's what they meant. Tom and Maddie looked at each other with concern.
Shadow, you said you've had a bath before.
Yep, he was definitely red. Yeah, he had a bath years ago, back on the Ark. But with the other humans, it was always just them tossing water over him and calls it a bath. That's what he had grown to expect. He felt humiliated, and he had no one to blame but himself. Knuckles frowned and looked at his parents, seeing their concerned faces, and Shadow's embarrassed one.
Mother, father, I will help him from here. Can you freshen up his bed?
Luckily, his parents didn't comment and gave Knuckles what Shadow needed. Both headed out and closed the door for Shadow's privacy. The red echidna sat the hedgehog on the toilet seat and took off his own mitt to feel the water.
Take your gloves and socks off. You don't want them getting wet.
Shadow began taking the gloves off, then his socks in silence, but his rings were kept on. Knuckles took notice.
The rings too. You don't want.
No.
Shadow's stern voice made the echidna blink and gave him a questioning look.
These rings, these inhibitors, are for your safety. They help control my chaos energy, the flow that's in me. Without them, I could hurt. And they were given to me by someone I admired who's no longer here.
Knuckles took in what he said. He knew the hedgehog had a lot of chaos energy, but that implication that most of it's being inhibited, Shadow wasn't aware of the danger of saying that. Or, if he was, it's because he trusted the echidna to an extent. If those rings were taken off, he could have escaped the humans with ease. But, of course, the sentimentality and being restrained the way he was meant he couldn't remove them. He also remembered what he said before, how he wasn't aware he could escape. Mentality of obedience drilled into him. He was far too kind for such a fate that was given. Knuckles nodded in understanding.
I see. I keep something at my birth, father. I will show you, when given the time. But for now, let's get you in the tub before it gets cold.
He held out his arm for the hedgehog to take, but he didn't. Shadow got up himself, holding the sink's edge and made his way to the tub. So Knuckles stepped aside and kept his hands out in case Shadow needed his help. He felt the tub and his eyes widened at the heat. It wasn't too hot, but he hadn't had something like that in a long time. He took a deep breath and braved a step over the tub, 1 foot at a time, putting his hand on the wall and the other at the sink's edge for support, and lowered himself down, and his muscles felt thankful.
Shadow, I will be outside if you require any help. Those 2 bottles will help your fur and quills. The sponge will help wash the dirt off once you are finished. Use this towel to wrap around you so it'll make it easier to dry you with.
Without waiting for a response, Knuckles headed outside the bathroom and closed the door. Now filled with quiet, the black hedgehog leaned back against the tub, sighing out in relief from the heat, feeling good on those muscles of his. He hasn't had hot water in years. He remembered the days when Maria and him were on the Ark. After testing days, he would feel unwell or sore and was often lethargic. Sometimes in that period, she would run him a bubble bath. He would sit in it, and she would put her arms in and help him be comfortable, and maybe splash him at times. More often than not, it would result in him splashing her back. The floor and her would be drenched in water, of course, but she always laughed during it, and it would make him laugh as well. He swallowed at the memory, bending over to hug his knees, and he gripped his arms painfully, digging his claws into his fur. He heard her joyful laugh again, echoing in his head, her calling out his name. He whimpered and closed his eyes tightly, and he felt tears run down his cheeks. Unfortunately, Knuckles heard the sound outside, but recognized the pain he emitted, and stood out there as a silent witness for Shadow. The secret of his vulnerability in that moment will stay in the echidna's heart, and guard it with his life.
Do you think Shadow is alright?
Tails asked Sonic, both cleaning their room. The fox using his twin tails as propellers to fly and used the duster on the attic ceiling. Sonic tidied up his comics and all sorts of video game covers from the floor at his area, ears twitching at the question.
Maybe. He's got a lot of issues that we don't exactly know about, but hopefully we can help him. How do you feel about him anyway?
Sonic began putting his game covers into their rightful place, opening and closing to make sure the games were in the right ones.
I like him. I mean, sure, he can be awkward and a little hard to read, but I think with enough time, we could be good friends. But, do you think back on Mobius he was like me?
Like you?
Well, yeah, his coloring is odd, Sonic. Hedgehogs come in one single color usually. Like, what if the hedgehog village rejected him because of his colors? Just like my village rejected me because of my tails.
I wouldn't know. I don't remember how hedgehogs worked back on our planet. Bet you could be right. Still, we won't know until he talks to us more. Also,
Sonic held out his arms for the fox, who got the hint and flew back down onto the ground and hugged into the blue hedgehog.
forget those lame foxes back there. You'll have the coolest thing ever. 2 tails. It's special and makes you different, but in a good way. Why be normal like those dweebs?
Tails giggled at Sonic's way of words. He always found a way to make the kid feel better about his extra tail. So it did Knuckles and the humans. It always felt nice to have someone in your corner. He hugged the blue hedgehog tighter. Maybe they can be like that for Shadow. But out of the corner of his eye, the Master Emerald glowed in response to Tails' thoughts. He paused and decided to test something, and so he thought, maybe once Shadow was better, they could show him areas of green hills, and the glow happened again. He gaped at the Master Emerald. It was like the emerald was agreeing with him. Did it want to help Shadow? The glow responded in a harmonious glow. He could almost hear a hum from it. He wasn't imagining it then. The Master Emerald worked in mysterious ways, and Fox wanted to know more. Maybe he'll join Knuckles in the next meditation to ask a few questions if he could. Child. Tails blinked and pulled back from Sonic, who gave his brother a raised brow, confused why he would suddenly part from the hug. And he gave the Master Emerald a glance, spotting the glow had brightened somewhat.
Tails? You having a conversation with the Master Emerald with your eyes?
You didn't hear that?
Tails muttered, definitely confused, but he saw the glow dim a little, almost like playing a practical joke on the fox, making it feel like he was a mad. Tails muttered, definitely confused, but he saw the glow dim a little, almost like playing a practical joke on the fox, making him feel like he was imagining it. But a loud thump and yelp was heard throughout the house.
I mean, I heard that.
Sonic peered over the attic door, Tails joining in too.
Worry not. He accidentally turned the shower on. Don't worry, my friend. It is no water fairy.
Knuckles declared, and they could hear Shadow sigh from all the way up there. Both of them snorted, and the emerald had its own mini hum like it was joining them. Shadow definitely looked better. Despite the mishap, he didn't know how to exactly drain the water. So Tom had gone up to do it for him, and boy was the water filthy. Between dirt and old blood, the bath might need a good scrubbing. So while Tom did that, Shadow was sitting on the couch drying his quills with a brown towel, and was handed another towel by Maddie. His midnight fur looked better, and so did his quills. His brown and red stripes were now his real color, pure blood like red. Not as ruby like his eyes, but now she could see some health coming back to the hedgehog, just more fluffy from the drying. Knuckles set the hedgehog's belongings on the couch for him and handed Maddie the requested item she asked for earlier. Now she hoped he wouldn't get too jumpy with this.
Shadow?
She said, plugging in the hairdryer. The black hedgehog stepped in, drying his upper quills with the towel, and those red eyes felt like they were staring deep into her soul. The bath did wonders in bringing that color inside eyes out. She took a deep breath.
You still have some mats, and Knuckles' hands are too big for this. I have a detangle brush at the ready, and scissors.
She saw his body tense up from the mentioning of said object. She hurriedly sat the hairdryer down.
You can watch me. I just want to cut out those mats. The brush will pull them a little, and I can cut them out without them fully touching your skin.
Shadow's lip curled somewhat. Oh, she expected to get bit from this, because that's the aura he was giving off. She could feel her own anxiety in his rise. She saw Knuckles' own body also tense in response. He likely feels the black hedgehog's nervous aura, and the threat he could heard Maddie was getting high.
Shadow, I really just want to help you. I've done this with Sonic.
The black hedgehog actually froze at the blue hedgehog's name.
When he first came to live with us, he had some bad mats and had burns from the fight with a bad human. He couldn't maintain a proper body temperature because of those mats, and so I helped him. That's all I want to do for you, so you can retain yours for the weather to come. I won't do it if you say no. If it helps, I could sing. Play some music to distract your mind.
She expected him to shake his head and brace herself for a fight. But to her surprise, the aura he gave off diminished somewhat. He gazed at her, taking in what she said about Sonic, and he nodded. She stood there dumbstruck, seeing him step forward to give her room to do the mats at his back, wheels and all. Knuckles was also pleasantly surprised by the gesture. He was making steps, small ones, but still progress. So he sat down and crossed his legs in a meditative state to allow Shadow to know he was still here and it would allow him time to jump in if he needed to. Maddie took a deep breath and picked up her scissors and detangler brush and her detangle spray. Before she could go near him, though, Shadow pointed at his throat, but then to hers. She blinked.
You want me to sing?
He nodded and pressed his hands tightly on his knees, bracing for the procedure, trying to keep his anxiety in check for letting her near him. Okay, now she needed to think on a song or a lullaby, a calming one, to be good for Shadow and herself. She turned to the side slowly, and Shadow watched her, posture still, but his eyes kept on her. She hummed to start with, trying to think. Disney, maybe? Shadow wouldn't exactly know what they were, but she really just needed to make noise for the hedgehog. So he was musically inclined. That definitely was interesting. She might have to talk to Tom about maybe lending the black hedgehog some earphones and a music player. But then a song came over her. It wasn't Disney, but it was a lullaby she heard, only hopes it would keep Shadow calm. Sprayed the detangler on one mat and sat the spray down. She saw his ears twitch, gaze watching her every move, but he was listening. She brushed the area with her detangle brush.
Lay down your head and I'll sing you a lullaby back to the years of holy loyalty.
She was singing softly as she could, and she sniffed the mat, and thankfully he didn't flinch when she did so, though he was shaking somewhat. She was no professional at either thing she was doing, but she was a mama, so all she could do is try.
And I'll sing you to sleep, and I'll sing you tomorrow. Bless you with love for the road as you go.
Shadow's face hardened a little bit, and she wondered if she may have picked the wrong song, but she needed to keep going. He did seem to be listening and taking it in, his shaking ever present, the tight grip on his knees.
May you sail fair to the far fields of fortune with diamonds and pearls at your head and your feet.
She sprayed again on another mat, brushed and cut. He was tense, but the lullabies seemed to be doing the trick, the focus on music.
And may you need now to banish misfortune. May you kindness in all that you need.
Oh, she wished that for Shadow, wished for that to be true from this moment forward. Said Hedgehog kept listening to her attempt at this lullaby, and he actually seemed to be enjoying it, dare she say. So, he does like music. He was still gripping onto his knees tightly, but she felt proud of him, enduring this discomfort.
May there always be angels to watch over you, to guide you each step.
Rinse and repeat. She got to his back once where he couldn't watch, but an ear tilted as she did. His shaking got worse.
To mother and keep you safe from harm.
And she kept going, kept singing to the nervous hedgehog, and he allowed her to carry on.
May you bring love, and may you bring happiness. He loved in return to the end of our days.
She felt him stiffen under her as she cut, but she kept going. Not many were left.
Off too soon. I'm not living to keep you.
Rinse and repeat. She felt him swallow.
I'll just sit for a while and see you die. May there always be angels to watch over you, to guide you each step.
She saw her oldest with his eyes shut, listening to her as well. She put her wishes into the lullaby, not only for Shadow, but all her boys.
To guide you each step. To guide you and keep safe your heart.
She kept humming, the song dwindling as she checked her work. She got most of the mats out of her fur, and he looked a lot better. He glanced at her and she gave him a small smile.
I hope my singing wasn't too bad. Did you like it?
She really wasn't expecting him to say or nod really, but he actually did. He nodded and looked like he pursed his lip, trying to make a gesture maybe. He lifted his hand and shakily put up a thumb. She smiled even brighter, and she saw him have a tiny blush on his muzzle. She handed the brush to him, and he took it, giving her a questioning look.
Here, I'm going to blow dry you, and once you are fully dry, you can brush your fur to even it out.
She put on the hairdryer, and she nearly melted at his startled cat expression, eyes wide and staring at the object in her hand. He looked at it, then her, so she turned it off. Gosh, her cheeks hurt now.
It'll make drying easier and quicker. It'll warm you up and make your fur soft again. I use it on my hair.
She held it up for permission, but paused.
Did I hurt your ears, baby? Oh, I'm so sorry. I'll put the power down so it isn't as loud.
She did and began to blow dry him, and his eyes were closed, enjoying the heat from the hairdryer. It took maybe several minutes, but by the time she was done, she had one extremely fluffy hedgehog, and her eyes twinkled with how cute he looked. It reminded her of when Sonic puffs out the same way. He began to use the brush on himself to smooth it down and make it even. His fur looking so much healthier. His quills aren't in disarray anymore. They pointed upwards at the ends, and he had ones that pointed downwards behind his head. They looked like his natural quills again, she guessed.
Thank you for trusting me enough to help you.
She said, and Shadow's ruby eyes lit up in surprise, her acknowledging it. It was most likely because of Knuckles that he even sat through it. Tom came into the room with 2 bags, and she knew what they were. She smiled, knowing what was about to be shown.
Hey, wow, you look so much better. Feel better or more comfortable?
Shadow didn't respond, which again was expected, and Tom didn't feel offended at least either. He understood the reluctance, but happy he accepted some help.
Well, Shadow,
She could see his ears pin back somewhat, probably expecting something bad coming from that sentence.
My friend Wade came by last night, wondering how you are. Wade was with me when we brought you here, so don't worry about other humans knowing about you.
He set the lighter back next to Shadow, but kept the heavier one.
He got you some stuff. You can have a look at it.
Shadow's facial expression was one with great surprise and wonder.
He just wanted to let you know he's thinking about you. But this one,
He held the heavier bag and sat it down on the table with a thump.
he figured they were yours. They weren't far from where you were found.
The black sapient's eyebrow rose, so Tom went into the bag, and Shadow became flabbergasted, full of recognition. In Tom's hands were his air shoes, and he let out a gasp. Knuckles took note of the hedgehog's body language and facial expression, so he leaned forward, watching the exchange.
Ah, so we did guess right. You recognized these. That's good.
Tom handed them to Shadow, who took them into his arms tightly and held them against his chest. Shadow had an attachment to those shoes by the looks of it. His face became distorted with a mixture of gratitude and pain. Then they heard a whimper, then a choke. It was like something in him broke, which startled Tom and Maddie. They began to crouch down to the hedgehog's level, and his body began to shake.
Shadow?
Tom said softly to the black hedgehog as not to startle him, but he wondered if he did the right thing.
Oh, Shadow.
Shadow looked at them, and both of them froze with his expression. It was the most expressive they've ever seen on someone. A mixture of despair, gratitude, guilt, and pain that might have come from a memory. A couple of tears burst from the hedgehog.
Thank you.
He whispered. Tom and Maddie were in awe, though it was quiet. It was the first time they heard his voice since he became a guest. Well, voluntarily, anyway, since yesterday Shadow probably didn't realize he spoke to Maddie over the pill situation. Regardless, their hearts were hurting for this kid. So Maddie bravely put her hand on the shoe, and so did Tom, his pained expression looking at them both with some confusion.
we're here for you, baby.
His lip quivered and he swallowed. A choke-like sound came from his throat, like he was unable to understand why.
We're here for you, bud. Take your time, but we are here for you.